the around 30, and Monday warmer still under partly sunny skies, highs in the upper 30s.
Wait, you're listening.
Okay.
You're listening
to Radio Lab.
Radio Lab.
From
WNYC. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Jad Rod. This is Radio Lab. To start things off today, a couple months ago,
You want some shopping? Too small? I'm gonna get an Americano.
in that magical, forgotten time before the coronavirus, our reporter Simon Adler somewhat mysteriously walked me a few blocks from our office, mic in hand, to a coffee shop.
Okay, with our coffee purchased, let's go stand in the corner where it's maybe a little less loud.
Sort of a fancy one. Exposed brick, bare Edison bulbs.
So let's gaze out upon the hipsters of Lower Manhattan.
It's a survey and count the number of laptops.
Yeah. So how many laptops do you think are in here?
Okay, starting from the left, we're gonna circle around. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Two more on the
Two
bar.
more on the bar.
And they're all typing the same way, right? Or they're all using a QWERTY keyboard.
Yes.
And the reason he dragged me there, as I now know,
Now let's imagine we're in Shenzhen in a Chinese Starbucks.
was to point out a massive cultural difference hidden in plain sight, and to propose a bit of a reporting trip.
Are you gonna send somebody to Starbucks in Shenzhen?
Well, that's my hope that I will be the one sent to a Starbucks in Shenzhen.
Well played, Adler.
Now, you did not bite on that reporting trip.
Nope.
Plus, pretty soon thereafter, traveling to China became a lot more difficult. So,
Okay, I'm in this big Starbucks shop here in Hong Kong.
to play out this comparison I had in mind, instead, we hired and sent local reporter Yang to scope it out for us.
There are about 50 people here, maybe 30 laptops or tablets open.
Because, and here is where we get to the point, everyone in this Starbucks
Typing and writing and browsing on the internet.
were all using their keyboards in a different way.
What do you mean? So using it in different ways in the way that they use the keyboard, or that the keyboards that they're using themselves are different?
The physical keyboard is going to be the exact same thing. They're QWERTY keyboards, just like here in New York.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
But like, even if everybody in this Chinese Starbucks was really into dogs, it was a dog convention, and so they were all typing the word "gou," which is dog in Mandarin. No two people would be typing the word dog the same way.
That's right. There could be 50 different ways that keyboard is being used to type the Chinese language.
This is Professor Tom Mulaney.
I'm professor of Chinese history at Stanford University.
Okay, well, and this is the doorway into the grand mystery, it would seem.
Yeah, because, I mean, in theory, there are an infinite number of different ways to type Chinese with the QWERTY keyboard.
I don't even know what that means. How is that possible?
Well, it turns out that figuring out how to type in Chinese on a keyboard
Was one of the most complex engineering, linguistic, and conceptual puzzles of its time.
It's a puzzle that threatened to erase an entire culture, nearly prevented China from becoming the technological superpower that it is today, and says a whole lot about where all of our communication is headed. All right, so before we get into why typing in Chinese is such a crazy, difficult problem to solve, let me introduce you to one of the guys who actually set out to solve it.
Hello，我这个10点半都一直在等。
Hello, Simon. Hi.
Hello, is everybody here? Can you all hear us? Professor Wang Yongming,
Yes, Professor Wang is here. You can talk to him.
my interpreter, fixer, and really co-reporter on the China side of this, Yang and I spoke with him a couple months back. Professor Wang, I think of you as sort of, almost like the Chinese Steve Jobs. Is that a fair way to think of you?
这个从资本和金钱的角度来衡量。
He says that he's nowhere close to the wealth Steve Jobs held.
A famous man,
But in terms of his fame and reputation,
客气说。
yes, it's a fair comparison.
Professor Wang was born in the 1940s in a small rural village.
几亩地，家里自己有几亩地，种
Growing up in this village, they had wheat and corn.
一个就是 countryside。
His family farmed, and his dad was also a carpenter, but it was a hard scrabble existence.
His family was so poor that they couldn't afford any clothes for him.
第一个印象就是
And
发现
because they were dirt poor, he understood at a very young age that going to school was not a small thing.
这从上小学
So he studied extremely
一
hard.
直到我上科技大学，我学习成绩
He said that from the first grade all the way to university,
永远都是 number one, always the number one. OK，
I am always the number one.
And all that hard work paid off. He was selected to attend the University of Science and Technology of China, which is basically the equivalent to MIT.
And after graduating from college, he was assigned by the government to a research institute located in this remote district.
And this wasn't just any research institute.
在那个研究所很重要的研究所，most important 的这个。
It was a top secret, highly classified national defense research institute. Even the locals didn't know what these people were doing there.
And the top secret, highly classified work that was going on there was building computers, which in China wasn't just an engineering question. It was much deeper. Keep in mind, this was the early 1970s.
And everyone that was paying attention knew that computing was going to change the fabric of economy, warfare,
Again, historian Tom Mulaney.
communication, everything.
62年这个入大学嘛，
But
这个
at that time, China was just starting to enter this field and
出现电脑嘛。
was lagging behind.
I mean, the best estimates I could find say that around that time, in the entire country, with a population of nearly 8 billion people, there were only 3,000 computers in use.
Why is that? Well, the simple reason is the Chinese language could not fit inside a computer.
Meaning what?
So, in English, we put our words onto the page or the screen by shuffling around these 26 letters, right?
Say them with me. A, B, C,
Each one representing a sound in the word.
F,
And the writing, in fact, tells you how to say the word.
B, I, G.
Big.
But Chinese writing is completely different.
The person character is placed next to a tree to convey the idea of resting.
When you write in Chinese, you aren't writing down the sounds of the word so much as you're drawing a picture of each word.
3 trees here are combined in the character for to mean a forest.
This Chinese writing goes back at least 3,000 years, and in fact, some of the earliest known examples of it were found on artifacts in Professor Wang's home province.
3700年以前的殷商讲
And this writing system, these characters, grew out of an attempt to represent the actual things in the world around us. Water, stars, animals, actions, feelings.
汉字是靠图形说话的。
You can see a scene, see a picture, a long history in a Chinese character.
So that today, there are more than 70,000 of these Chinese characters, each a unique visual representation of a word or an idea. And so the problem was, in the 1970s, computers had only a few bytes of memory, not even enough to store a single email message.
And so the available memory on all of these computers, commercially available computers, couldn't even store the Chinese character set.
Huh.
Or display them on a screen, or even print them. Like, again, back in the day, the 1970s, the way we're printing things is with dot matrix printers, right?
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Where these tiny needles strike the paper, composing letters out of a set of little dots.
Paper pixels.
Paper pixels, exactly. It takes way more pixels to produce a Chinese character than it does to produce a letter of the Latin alphabet.
And so inside these printers, those little needles weren't packed densely enough to tattoo a legible character onto the page.
And if you take those pins and shrink them to get more paper pixels in a pinhead, well, what happens is they bend and break because they are not tuned metallurgically. They're not tuned to being that size. So it's not as if China could simply just buy these computers wholesale, because the English language, the Latin alphabet, was in effect being baked into the architecture, in some cases the very matter and materiality of these machines.
Whoa. That's funny. Like, we talk sometimes about algorithm bias, but I had never realized there was this huge cultural barrier in the basic hardware of the computer.
Totally. And I mean, for China, this was seen as an existential threat. Like, consider the fact that because of these limitations into the 80s, they were forced to conduct and tabulate their census with pencil and paper.
No.
And so, my lord, if China couldn't figure out a way to computerize Chinese or to Chinese-ize computers, then it was going to be on the outside looking in.
So this was the problem they were trying to solve at that top secret research institute.
那么现在仍然，我
And the full magnitude of it, of this problem, really smacked Professor Wang in the face when he saw his first fully formed Western computer, which amazingly, because he'd been focused on such hyper-specific electrical problems, didn't happen until about 8 years into his research.
南洋印刷厂，
He remembers seeing it in a local printing shop.
对